Welcome to Around Kitsap. In this program on BCAT, we go in depth on a topic in our county. Today we are focusing on Kitsap County Juvenile and Family Court Services. Extremely important in our community, and really some very good news coming out today from this department of the county. Joining me is Mike Merringer. He is the director of the Kitsap County Juvenile and Family Court Services.
Court Services.
Mike, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mike and I have been in discussion for many, many months to be together and get this rolling. We're going to hear lots of good news today, so let's get started. Mike, give us a little of your background. Have you been always in this field? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I actually followed my father. My father was in Juvenile Justice. He was a youth camp counselor in a little town called Nassau, Washington, which is in the southern part of the state. And after college in that little town, you either went to work for the youth camp or you went to work in the woods. And so based upon kind of his career, I followed him. And so that began back in 1986. So I've been in one capacity of juvenile justice or another since that time.
Where'd you go to school, Mike?
Went to school in Western Washington, university up in Bellingham, which was a beautiful place. And
Great
really
spot.
A great school. I really enjoyed it. And I've been working in juvenile justice ever since.
What is it about juvenile justice that you love?
I think, well, there's so many different aspects of juvenile justice that you can actually go into. But the thing I like about this area is that you never have the same day twice. No matter how many times you come to work, there's always a different situation that you're dealing with, and especially when you're working with kids and families. And it's very easy to get sucked in to wanting, the kids and families that are struggling and perhaps not doing as well as they could, help them be successful and live productive lives.
And I think, like probably in most areas of our lives, it takes the youth and the family to want to be better, to want to make changes.
I think that certainly helps. As you can imagine, when kids come through court and if they're on probation, they aren't necessarily happy with that situation, and they're not happy with the fact that they have to make changes in their lives. But a lot of kids are not opposed to it. I think the majority of kids just don't know how to do it. And we've really seen some gains in juvenile justice lately with being able to teach them the skills in order for them to actually be successful.
Well, before we go into any more of that, let's talk about this building. We are on Old Clifton Road. What's the exact address?
It's 1338 Southwest Old Clifton Road, so we're on the other side of Highway 16.
And great building, huge building. Tell us about what's inside of this building.
Sure. Back when I started in Kitsap for the first go-around, back in 1990, we had a different facility. And we had a fairly small facility, and we're usually at capacity in our detention center.
Where was that old building?
It was actually right here.
It was on this site?
It was right here, and in fact, this is our current facility is a remodel of that old building. In fact, our prosecutor's wing currently sits in the old girls' detention wing, and so if you walk down that hall, they have these very small offices that are built with concrete and rebar.
Oh, wow.
So it's very difficult to enlarge those, as you can imagine. So I think it was right about 1998 when they did a remodel to this facility, and they built the detention facility downstairs. We're built on a hill, and so the parking lot where you walk in our building on the first floor is where the court is and where all the probation offices are, and most of the other offices as well. And then there's a stair system or elevator that you can take down to the next floor, which is our detention facility. And that was built again back in 1998, I believe, with a capacity of about 150 sleeping rooms for the juveniles.
We're going to talk about statistics about how many kids have been through this place and how many are current, but that's going to be later in the show. Let's talk about the number of employees are here.
We have just shy of 70 employees right now between our detention, our non-offender unit and our offender unit with our alternatives to detention work group. We also have an in-house drug and alcohol program, so we have 4 counselors within that program as well. We also have the prosecutors here that I don't count as my employees,
Right.
so they're in our wing, and we also have 2 clerks from the clerk's office that are here with us as well, and I don't count those employees either, but they are all very vital to our overall operation.
I'm sorry to backtrack a little. We didn't talk about your predecessor, who of course was here for years and years, and his name is Ned.
Ned Delmore.
Ned Delmore,
Yeah.
extremely visible in the community, very well known. When did he leave? When did you come to Kitsap? I know you'd had other jobs.
Yeah, I was here while Ned was here, and he came from King County. At that time, Harold Delia, which was Ned's director, came to Kitsap as well, and so I was a probation counselor here at Kitsap during that time. In fact, Harold helped me, gave me a nice recommendation for the job that I was able to get up in Island County. And I left Kitsap in 2000, went up to Island County for 11 years, and then when Ned left, had an opportunity to come back, but enjoyed working with Ned while I was here as a probation counselor, and have enjoyed working with Harold in his new capacity as a contract employee over at Yakima County.
So you came back to Kitsap in what year? In
2011. It was April of 2011
Wow.
when Ned decided to leave Kitsap. While I was in Island County, my wife and I maintain a home here in Gig Harbor, and so when this opportunity came open, I of course applied. It was a much better commute.
I bet. I bet. So we're talking about, let's talk some more about these employees that you're going to meet in future segments talking about services. I'm extremely impressed with longevity. The staff that I met, they've worked here 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years. So it must be the same. They just absolutely love the work.
Absolutely. When I was here the first time, we had employees with the same criteria. They had been here for 20 years, and in fact, many times when we have an employee here, they retire from this position. I think this line of work attracts a certain kind of person, and the people that we have here embody all of those characteristics of being incredibly passionate about their work, incredibly dedicated to help kids and families, and wanting the best for them. And I think the county has done a very nice job of keeping up to date on salaries and benefits. And,
excellent.
And this is a good place to work. As the folks will see when they have a chance to hear from those employees, they're very excited when they talk about their programs, when they talk about their work. They just have a certain light in their eyes that you can just tell that it's much more than a job to
That's
them,
right.
and they thoroughly enjoy what they do.
And they really enjoy each other. The sense of team in this building is phenomenal, knowing that they're all one piece of helping a young person.
A larger continuum, yeah. They really are close to one another, which is a great thing, and they are readily available to help each other out. When you have a caseload of kids, whether it be in the offender unit or whether it be in the non-offender unit, if they're not here, because they have obligations over at Superior Court within the court there, or other obligations here. When their family needs something, if they're not available, their coworker will step in, and they'll they will cover them and provide the services for those folks, regardless of if the primary probation counselor is here or not. Plus, when you work with one another, you probably spend more time with one another than you do with your own family, and they have developed a great relationship.
Yeah, fabulous. Says a lot. Says a lot about the facility, says a lot about the department, that there's a team here that's number one, committed to family and youth, and committed to each other to be successful. It's extremely evident. Let's talk about other partners. Who else comes into the facility to support youth, to support the team here? Who's coming in and helping?
You bet. Well, we talked about the continuum. When a kid first comes to our detention facility, there's a lot of assessments that go on by our detention. And so they are the first crucial aspect of this continuum. But we have contracts with Kitsap Mental Health if there are concerns about a kid's mental health or risk of harm, we can call Kitsap Mental Health. They are contracted to be here 10 hours a week. We have Dave Seacrest who comes in and does a marvelous job with the kids and can provide the assessments and provide the instructions to detention officers in reference to if the kid does pose a risk, what types of checks are they on? Are they on 15-minute checks? Really helping the detention staff be able to respond to those kids. Once they come through court, we have our intake probation officer that goes down and interviews the kids. They make determinations in reference to how the kid is doing in school, if there are drug and alcohol issues, how the kid is doing at home with the parents, calling the parents, being able to call the school to make sure that the home school where that kid is going has information on that kid that can help out as well. If the kid progresses up to court and then is released, we have our drug and alcohol in-house program that can begin services for that kid. That kid is assigned to a probation officer who will then make all the connections within the community for that kid, whether it be mental health, whether it be drug and alcohol, whether it be independent counseling, whether it be any program that the parents want to help support. Besides that, we also have our educational programs from the educational school district. They provide our detention school for the kids that stay in detention, but they also provide the Kitsap Alternative Transition School and so forth. These are for kids who are on probation that aren't doing well within their home school. They'll come back to our alternative school here. We'll provide transportation for the kids to bring them back and forth, and they help those kids either retrieve credits or get them up to a point where they can be successfully transitioned back into their home school. So I mean, this is much larger than just juvenile court. This is a process by which we utilize all the resources at our disposal to try to get these kids back on the right track.
Exactly. And that's why we have the name Juvenile and Family Services, because we want to surround the child, youth, and really include the family.
Absolutely. That's also important because not only do we do probation and provide the services for kids who are involved with crime, we also provide guardian ad litems. And when kids are removed from their families based upon neglect or abuse and they're dependent, we assign a guardian ad litem. And this is an individual from our department that advocates for the best interests of those kids within that court. And they work hand in hand with the Department of Social and Family Services. They have caseworkers that are assigned to those cases that they coordinate the case with. We have the Assistant Attorney General who acts as the prosecutor in those proceedings, as well as defense counsel for the parents. And so not only do we have a very important role to play within kids and families who are involved with crime, we have an equally important, if not more important, role to play within those kids that have been removed.
Big, big, big important work, really important work. I would think as a parent, if your child is in the juvenile system, it might be a little bit devastating, especially if this is, you've got to navigate through this, it's a choice your child has made. Now what do we do? And maybe the parent is devastated, they don't know what to do. So they need as much help as the youth.
Sure. And what I'd like to explain to folks is that not only are we here to respond to crimes and having kids on probation, we're also here for a resource for the parents. And if kids are not involved in crime but are outside the control of their parents, the courts have another avenue that the parents can access, and that's called either a children in need of services petition or an at-risk youth petition. And these are non-criminal actions that the parents can contact our department, file the petition, and can get the court involved with that kid in reference to placing conditions on that kid to abide by that will get them back into the control of the parent. That's not necessarily associated with any types of crime or that.
But you just know as a parent, something's not right.
Absolutely.
My kid's hanging with the wrong group. They're not listening. They're not respecting. Those kind of things. Is that what you're referring to,
That's
Mike?
what I'm referring to, yeah. Prior to this law, I used to have parents call me all the time as a probation counselor and say, hey, can you provide some help? we really feel bad about the path that our son or daughter has taken. And back before this law, I would have to unfortunately tell the parent, well, I have to wait until they commit a crime before I can step in with the courts and then provide that type of supervision. This law was named after Rebecca Hedman, excuse me, and she was a juvenile who was on the run from her parents in Tacoma and unfortunately was murdered in Spokane. And so the parents went to the legislature knowing that if something like this existed, perhaps she would have had a different outcome.
And that is commonly known as
The Becca Law.
the Becca Law.
Right, or the Becca Bill.
Becca Bill.
Correct.
Gives parents that tool to ask for help.
Correct.
And I don't know what word I'm looking for. Someone to
Intervene.
Intervene. That was the word.
Right.
Give them some help in getting their kid back on the path.
Right.
Perfect.
With a lot of these juveniles, if you can just provide the support necessary for the kid to come to the realization, for them to mature a little bit, for them to grow up, for them to realize that this is not the path that they want to go on, that's all that's needed. We're not talking about significant inpatient treatment or anything beyond just that support through supervision. And in many cases, the kids will mature and they will come to realize this is not the way that they want to lead their lives.
I used to tell my boys that are now in their 30s, if you don't make the choice and you don't go this way, someone's going to make that choice for you. You make the bad choice, somebody's going to come along and help you make the good choice.
That's true. That's true. When kids do commit crimes, they put themselves at the mercy of the court, and then the court starts making decisions about when they come home and where where they spend their time and who they spend their time with. And I understand that the juveniles want to be able to have some autonomy and to make some of those decisions, but they give that right up.
That's exactly right. Let's talk about money.
Let's talk
about the budget. Why don't you talk about what we're seeing on the screen, the pie chart, and the grants and the overall budget? Give us that overview.
Sure. The overall budget, at least this year from the commissioners, we received a request to put forth a status quo budget. That's usually a pretty good news.
That's good news.
Message from the commissioners because we aren't facing
cuts,
significant deficits. When I worked as a probation officer, I had no idea how complicated budgets could be, and it's complicated just because of all the external revenue that comes into a juvenile court, as well as the taxes. And I was really pleased that the commissioners enacted the mental health and drug and alcohol tax that has enhanced both of our drug court and our individualized treatment court.
And you'll see that on the pie chart, and it's commonly called the 1/10 of 1%. When did that money start coming into the system to get used? Is it just in the last couple of years?
Last couple of years,
Yep.
yeah. And in fact, we made an application for the first year and successfully, or were successful with both of our applications for the enhancement of our therapeutic courts, as well as support for our in-house drug and alcohol program. But beyond, and there's actually two taxes that actually come in. One is a jail and juvie tax, and it's for basically detention and the jails, and we split that with the jails, and that helps our overall operation of our detention facility. And then the second was the other 1/10 of 1%, which was for the mental health and drug and alcohol treatment tax.
Okay.
But beyond that, we have about $1.2 million that comes into our department from other outside grants, and a lot of it comes in through our offender program. The state legislature appropriates a certain amount of money that comes into the individual juvenile courts that we have to track, and but that totals like $1.2 million, which is a significant.
That's significant. What did you say the overall budget was for the
for
your
for
department?
2016 that has not officially been adopted yet? It's $7.9 million, which is a lot of money.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money, and it takes a lot of money to operate juvenile detention facilities and juvenile offender services and non-offender services. And so we understand the obligation that goes with that, and are very cognizant of the fact that we have a huge responsibility for our taxpayers and for our citizens.
Does Kitsap have a relationship with Jefferson or Pierce in serving youth from those counties?
Well, we do with Jefferson.
Jefferson
Does not have a detention facility, and so they contract with us to provide some guaranteed beds for them, as well as some other placement for the youth. The good news about detention is our average daily population is decreasing. About 5 years ago, our average daily was about 34. And for 2014, it has fallen to 15, and so that's a very
that's great.
It is great. It is great. We want to provide the services for the kids that need it, but I can't think that a falling average daily population in our detention facilities is a bad thing. But we do provide that contract for Jefferson, and I know I just talked to their juvenile court administrator the other day, and she's interested in continuing our relationship into 2016 as well.
Good.
We used to have a CRC, a Crisis Residential Center, that we shared with Pierce County. And I wasn't here when that contract was terminated, but that was a contract that the state actually had with us to provide those crisis residential beds, and those were beds for kids who were runaways that were not in detention for criminal matters, and but that's no longer available.
Are those services available if a child's in crisis?
They are not in Kitsap. There are two facilities that have secure crisis residential centers. One is located in Clallam County, and one is located over in Wenatchee. But those are the only two. I know law enforcement really misses the fact that if they do come across a runaway, excuse me, in Kitsap, that the closest thing that's available for them is a long ways away, quite frankly.
Yeah, right. In our closing minutes, and we just have a few now, Mike, let's talk about trends in Kitsap. You talked about the decrease in the detention numbers. What are the trends in Kitsap?
Well, probably the most drastic trend in Kitsap is the decrease of our offender filings. Now, an offender filing is when a kid commits a crime, a prosecutor will charge him with that crime, and that's an offender filing. Back in 2009, we had 912 offender filings for Kitsap County, and in 2014, that has fallen to 375.
Wow.
Which is not unlike the national trend, but certainly more drastic than the decrease nationally. And so that I think is attributed to a lot of different reasons, and I think it's anywhere from some of the new programs that are being offered for kids to some cooperation from the prosecutor, the law enforcement, and probably mental health and drug and alcohol services. So that's a very nice trend.
That's very encouraging. Let's hear that number one more time. In what year was it? There were 900?
In 2009, there were 912. And last year, for 2014, which is the last completed year, we were at 375. And we're on track for about that same number for 2015, so we haven't seen any increase.
That's great.
And we talked about the decrease in our detention average daily population, which is also positive. The other trend that we saw, at least this year, is for our non-offender, and these are the kids that are removed for abuse neglect. That has actually risen this year, and so we've had more of those kids, which is very hard to predict, because if you take a look at the filings in previous years, it looks like a roller coaster. One year is up and the next year is down. And so the nice thing about Kitsap Juvenile Court is that we have the people who provide probation are also the same people who can provide the guardian ad litem services. And so if probation is down and the non-offender court is up, we can shift resources to be able to respond to those trends.
Wow. So mostly good news.
Mostly good news.
Mostly good news.
Mostly good news.
But still lots of work. Give us a little snippet in our closing about evidence-based programs and how those affect benefits to the taxpayers.
Sure. Back in 2009, and I'll try to be very, very quick with this, but it's actually a very long story. But back in In 1998, the legislature blew up the sentencing grid for juveniles. In response to that, the juvenile court administrators contracted with a psychologist out of Toronto, Canada, to create a risk assessment. And when they created that risk assessment, they created the ability to chart progress of kids in reference to the risk that they have to reoffend. They identified a number of programs that were evidence-based to show that if a kid completed the program, that it would reduce his risk to recidivate. The WISP, or the Washington State Institute for Public Policy, has determined exactly what that means dollar-wise. If a kid completes a certain program and his risk to recidivate is decreased, what does that mean to the taxpayers in the state of Washington? And if it's a positive benefit, that's deemed as a evidence-based program.
Evidence-based, got it.
And so the 3 evidence-based programs that Kitsap County currently provides is functional family therapy, and this is where a therapist goes into the family home and works with a kid and family for 12 weeks. The second is the Washington Aggression Replacement Training Program, and our probation counselors currently provide the instruction for that, and that's a 12-week program where kids will come in and be taught to different skills in reference to de-escalation of anger, those type of things. And the last is we call it Restart, or Restoring Success, Trust, and Respect in Teens, and that's a program designed specifically for our low-risk offenders. But if the kids complete that program, and we have a target that we start out each year of how many kids we want to have complete, but for 30 kids, if they complete functional family therapy, they will return a taxpayer benefit of $809,000. For the aggression replacement training, if we have a target of 40 and 40 kids complete that program, they will provide a taxpayer benefit of $582,000. And for the restoring success and trust in teens, for a target of 40 of those kids completing that program, will return a benefit to taxpayers of $240,000. So when I go to the commissioners and I talk about the funding that we have coming in, I also let them know that based upon the programs that we're offering the kids in Kitsap County, if we meet our targets, we're also going to realize this amount of money as well.
In savings to the system.
Correct.
Wow. Really very, very interesting. If you think you need some help with your youth, there's a website, there's a phone number on your screen. These people are here to help you. And it's a great spot. You'll meet good people here. They don't want you to be here. But if you need the help, the website is on the screen, phone number on the screen. Stay tuned to BCAT to hear more about the Kitsap County Juvenile and Family Court Services. We're going to hear from folks that are giving direct service to our youth and families in Kitsap County. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Char.
Thanks for the overview.
It's been a pleasure.
Some heartening information and some good information, especially on the decreasing numbers. Thanks for staying with us today on Around Kitsap, and we'll see you next time.